All right. The 49ers lost to the Seahawks 20-17. Yikes, man. This was, for me, kind of the culmination of what this year has been sort of building to. Like, they reached this tipping point of 5-4. And, okay, you can go to 6-4, and you can start this push toward 7-4 with a win against Green Bay, and now all of a sudden you're at the top of the NFC West, or you're in a wild card spot, and everything's kind of trending the right way, where they could be playing their best football heading into January, like we've seen them do so many times. Or you could lose this one and go to 5-5, go to last in the division, and it turns out there's no switch to flip. They're just this. Like, this is what the 2024 49ers are.
Yeah, today was the day that I've given up on the idea that they have equity and I'm expecting them to turn it around and they have a run in them, or we should expect a run in them. Today was the day where all that went away for me, frankly. I just you can make excuses, you can talk about injuries. They're still far more talented than Seattle. They should have won that game a few different ways, right? There were so many things that went wrong for them to lose that game and allowing the Seahawks to hang around. The offensive line wasn't very good. They got dominated up front. Jake Brendel continues to be a real issue, is having a pretty poor year. I would say Colton McKivitz also is having a pretty poor year at right tackle. The penalties, taking away scoring opportunities for the 49ers. The 49ers had that drive at the end of the second quarter. McKivitz has a false start, gives up a sack on the next play. I think they had the ball in field goal range at the 34-yard line, ended up punting, getting no points out of that situation.
Brutal.
After the interception early in the third quarter, they had a bunch of penalties, and they ended up not scoring a touchdown there, only getting a field goal. That's two trips that, I'm not saying they should have scored touchdowns both trips. Ideally, that's what you want, right? But to only get 3 points there, that I think is a huge moment in the game. They aren't showing any signs of being that team that we're used to seeing, right? Like we're used, like we see the familiar characters, right? Like we see a lot of the same players, and that's frankly for me what's given them equity, leading me to think that they're going to turn it around and that they should be favorites to win the division. I don't even know that they should be favorites to win the division.
Not even close.
I don't think, you lose 3 games that I think you had the lead in the last 2 minutes in each one.
Yes.
3 division games, and you're clearly better than these teams, at least on paper and from a talent perspective. I don't know what the fix is, but it's just not there right now. They're not that team. It's impossible for me to expect that they will get back to being that team, particularly as the injuries keep piling up. And the thing you have to do when you have injuries is just not shoot yourself in the foot. And the 49ers shot themselves in the foot over and over. They didn't take advantage of their opportunities. They left a lot of points on the field. And I absolutely think losing Nick Bosa for the fourth quarter is a big deal, right? Like I don't think it's a coincidence that the Seahawks have 2 scoring drives there with Nick Bosa on the sideline. But that being said, that's not the only reason they lost, right? Same goes for George Kittle. Like they have the guys on the field. You have Deebo Samuel making a ton of money, making $25 million a year, to have 4 catches for 22 yards and 1 run for -1 yard, right? Like this is a player who we thought coming into the game would have a big one, and he didn't at all. And Ricky Pearsall didn't do anything. No catches on 2 targets. Really, it was Jawan Jennings and Christian McCaffrey, and the 49ers didn't have anything else for the Seahawks offensively. And so I think it falls on Kyle Shanahan. I think it falls on the players. I think injuries are absolutely a part of it. But today, for me, was sort of the nail in the coffin of, giving them respect to the point where, I just kind of assumed they would turn it on. And I don't think that's there for them right now. And I think a lot can change, sure. But I'm done with the idea that I expect this team to turn it around, because they've shown no sign of it, and they've shown no sign of being able to win these games that they have to win in order to have a successful season. And look, there's still a lot of football left to be played, but I think they've lost that equity with the way they've played to this point.
Yeah, and there's not the equity was okay, they get to November and they start playing their best football in November. And then they come out against the Buccaneers and it looks like it looked all year. And then they come out today, they had they went 4.9 yards per play today. That's their worst output of the year. But like a lot. 5.5 was their previous low against the Chiefs. And you're going backwards. That's the wrong that's the wrong thing. So the fact that Christian McCaffrey coming back didn't help, because that was also the thing, right? Going, okay, well, we get McCaffrey back, it starts scoring touchdowns, like everything's gonna be fine, and it's like it's just not. It's just that's what it is this year, and we could sit here and go, okay, it's penalties, it's coaching, it's the offensive line, it's injuries. They're like all of these things. I don't know that it's any one thing, but it's just really clear.
It's tons of things. That's the issue. It's too many things.
Right. And so as we sit here on November 17th, that's too late to go, okay, well, they got to figure, like if they were stuff to figure out, they'd have gotten it by now. And I think the accumulation of everything, and I think too, this is not an excuse. This is just another thing. I think the cumulative effects of 4 out of 5 years ending in crushing defeat, including the most crushing last year, where you were one play away multiple times from winning the Super Bowl, and then you didn't. I imagine it's really, really tough in these games when it's late to dig deep and go, okay, this is what we're playing for. This is what we're fighting for. When you're looking up at the standings, you're going, God, the Lions are really good, and all these teams in the NFC are playing really well, and then over in the AFC, God, the Chiefs are undefeated again. You got smoked at home by that team. I think there is a mental edge that they've had in recent years that they're just lacking this year, in part because of last year they had a really, really good shot to achieve their lifelong dream as players and as humans, and they didn't. Now they gotta just suit up and go do it again in a year where all this adversity hits in week 1. Like Christian McCaffrey goes down immediately. Mm-hmm. And then you had the Brandon Ayuk stuff and the Trent Williams stuff. It's a really, really hard spot. Like winning in the NFL is hard to begin with. And then when you start throwing all of these obstacles in the way and then shooting yourself in the foot continually on top of it, you wind up here. You wind up at 5-5 and being a middle of the road team.
Yeah. It's looking to me like if we want to just zoom out and big picture thing, and maybe this is completely reactionary and maybe I'll feel completely different after next week's game in Green Bay. But right now, this feels like a transition year. This feels like a transition from the core of, the past 5-6 years to whatever the core of the next 4 or 5 years is going to be. Right. And I think, I think if this keeps going this way and the 49ers back into the playoffs and they're, a 6 or 7 seed and they don't win the NFC West, which was pretty damn winnable. Like it doesn't really seem like there's a juggernaut in the NFC West, right? Like it's a winnable division for them to be at this point is really disappointing. Mm-hmm. I think there could be some serious changes. And we've talked a lot about the Deebo Samuel stuff. Like to me, the 49ers, I was looking at the numbers today. 49ers worst separation among pass catchers in the entire NFL all season. Mm-hmm. Right? This is a Kyle Shanahan staple. Mm-hmm. When you talk about players that Kyle Shanahan looks for, it is receivers, pass catchers who can get separation. 49ers are worst in the league in that this year. And they're one of the lowest teams. I think they were 28th in yards after the catch. This is just not what Kyle Shanahan's offense has done. And I think, I just think you're going to have a hard time paying Deebo Samuel what he's due next year if this is going to be what you're going to get. Like, you pay Brandon Ayuk, you draft Ricky Pearsall. Like, if Deebo Samuel is not going to be getting separation downfield and be a consistent receiver for you with Brandon Ayuk on the shelf, then he needs to be the wide back, the running back, right? That's really good for you.
Yes.
He hasn't been. He's averaging 3 yards a carry on the season.
I don't know if he's hurt or what, but he just has like negative juice. It's weird.
It's the accumulation of the style he plays. Like, this is what happens with really physical players. He's aging like a running back right now.
Mm-hmm. There's all these plays that they've run the last couple of weeks where and this dates back to last year a little bit, but you saw a little bit more of the kind of classic, really great, explosive Deebo Samuel last year. But this year, he's getting beat to the edge by defensive linemen. Like, that doesn't happen. And he's just being, on these end arounds and these jet sweeps, he's just being escorted out of bounds for a loss of 1, or maybe a gain of 1. The screens that used to be like, okay, 3rd and 13, tunnel screen to Deebo, and he might break it for a touchdown. It goes for 3 yards.
Yeah.
And the explosiveness isn't there. And I don't know if it might just be what you said. It might just be the accumulation of all the touches and the age, and that's what it is. Or if he's banged up and he's got an oblique thing or a shoulder thing, whatever. Or was it a wrist? He had some kind of other injury. I don't know if it's, I don't, but it used to be every time Deebo Samuel touched the ball, it was like, oh, this might be a house call. And now whenever he touches the ball, it's like, oh no, they lost a yard. And I don't think that's, unless he's, saved for the shallow crosser where he's wide open over the middle against zone. But other than that, he's not a guy that you can just manufacture touches for and let him generate offense for you.
Yeah, he's not. It doesn't seem like he is at this point. And like, I'm not trying to bury the guy. He's been phenomenal. Be hurt. He's been phenomenal to this point, but he's just right now, he's just not a guy worth that salary that you're looking at paying him next year. And I know you would take a big cap. You would take a big dead cap hit if you traded him or released him. You could ease it a little bit post June 1. I mean, the big thing is people talk about dead cap all the time. I don't want to make too much of a point about this, but it's really like the dead cap stuff doesn't prevent teams from doing things. Just because a guy has a dead cap number, that's money that is already paid. Regardless of what decision you make, that number is already gone. It's already out the door. It's already costing you against the cap. So you can either save what little money you can save by moving on from whatever player we're talking about, or you can just keep him and not save the money. The dead cap stuff is largely irrelevant.
Sure.
So like that money, like you bought the groceries, right? Like you paid for those groceries. You can, like, they're bought. That money is out of your bank account. You can either eat the groceries or throw them away, but you're not getting that money back. You're not returning them. You know what I mean? So it makes sense in my mind.
Okay.
But like,
okay. Yeah.
Totally. All I'm saying, the point here is that the dead cap stuff doesn't,
right.
I think it's immaterial. They're not going to hold on to Deebo Samuel because, there's a dead cap. So there's a dead cap number. That doesn't happen.
So I get that for sure. And maybe that's the route they go. I think the fact that they've put themselves in a position where they're still so dependent on him, where in a game where he wasn't effective, they just have no source of offense is a pretty significant issue. And I thought Christian McCaffrey was fine today, and Juwan Jennings was obviously awesome, but they just lack so much punch offensively right now, and they lack explosiveness. And I that might just be an injury thing. Maybe that's George Kittle being out and obviously Brandon Ayuk's out. That those are two really explosive players. So maybe it's just that. But I think another thing that really jumped out to me, and this is not isolated to today, and we've talked about this before, but this isn't just isolated to today. This is a problem I thought last week, and it's been a problem at times a couple other points this year. Where, good thing I don't talk for a living, where their offensive line just needs to win reps, and they're losing way too many reps. And I understand Kyle Shanahan's logic of draft the playmakers, draft the guy with the ball that gets the ball in their hands, and we can piece together an offensive line. You don't need a great offensive line, just need 5 starters. And it's killing them because I don't think they have 5 NFL starters on the offensive line. And the playmakers they've drafted, Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price, Danny Gray, Jacob Cowling can't get on the field, Cameron Latu, Jake Moody. The list goes on of offensive players, Jalen Hurd, offensive players that they take in the 3rd and 4th round, or in the 2nd round, like Dante Pettis, where it just fails miserably. And these are all like luxury picks. They don't need, we see time and time again, they don't need to draft a running back in the 3rd round, but they do it in 2 consecutive years. They draft a wide receiver in the 4th round who they won't put on the field. They draft a running back in the 4th round who they won't put on the field. And they're doing that instead of drafting offensive linemen who might actually help. They draft Dominic Pooney in the 3rd round. He's like their 2nd best offensive lineman right now by a lot. And I'm wondering if at some point Kyle Shanahan recognizes that and prioritizes it more. Because today I thought a lot of the problem was not Christian McCaffrey or Brock Purdy or anything anybody was doing. It was like, oh no, he's just getting hit in the backfield. And there's just zero. How many? When was the last time the 49ers ran a play where their running back just got into the secondary untouched? It felt like it used to happen 4 or 5 times a game. And now it just doesn't happen anymore.
Well, it used to be a pretty common thing that the 49ers offensive line would just win them games on their own, right? They would just be more physical, be a dominant run blocking team. And yeah, there's the occasional okay play here and there, but they don't get any explosive runs anymore. The penalties are just killing them. And it feels like a lot of times the penalties are, the holding penalties in particular are a result of getting overpowered. And when the 49ers went to Seattle in October and they won on that Thursday night, you got to remember Byron Murphy didn't play in that game. Boye Mafe didn't play in that game. They were hurt. And I think we got a little bit lost in the fact that that the 49ers were going up against a bunch of backups in Seattle's defense, and the offense actually played a pretty good game that night. It's like, well, if you're trying to win the Super Bowl, you're going to go against elite defensive players, particularly along the defensive front, right? And time again, whether it's Chris Jones in both Super Bowls or Aaron Donald in the NFC Championship game or all the Eagles guys from their NFC Championship game, it's like you're going to be going up against elite dudes, and you're not going to have a great chance of succeeding if Jake Brendel is your center and he's getting overpowered. And I don't know if Jake Brendel's hurt or what, but he's just not been very good at all, particularly in the running game. McKivitz, like we said, I don't want to keep harping on it, but yeah, at some point, and that's the other side of the Deebo Samuel and Javon Hargrave and Charvarius Ward, really good player. Charvarius Ward, I don't really group in the same category as those guys because I think he still is a high level player. Obviously, he was out today, but when you talk about remaking the roster and letting big salaries go, those are going to be the guys you look at because maybe you do need to bring in a free agent right tackle that, makes more than Colton McKivitz's $4 million a year or whatever it is.
Sure.
Right. Maybe you trade Deebo Samuel for a high draft. I don't even know if you can get a high draft pick for Deebo right now, but maybe you trade Deebo for a draft pick and maybe, that is your ammunition to go get an offensive lineman who you like in the draft, something if this keeps going the way it's going, I have a hard time envisioning a scenario where Deebo Samuel's back, Javon Hargrave's back, Charvarius Ward's back.
Yeah, right? There's got to be some kind of overhaul here,
particularly if you're going to pay Brock Purdy. And I think Brock has been fine. I think he was excellent last year. I think he's been fine to good throughout most of this year. I think he's had to rebrand the way he plays. And I think as time goes on, it becomes apparent that this is a different type of offense that they're running, that they're asking Brock to do a whole lot more. So I don't know that this is necessarily a Brock Purdy referendum type game, because I do think ultimately they are going to pay Brock Purdy. Frankly, just because I don't know what the alternative is. If you're not paying Brock, then you're paying somebody else, or you're investing a ton of draft capital and moving up to get a quarterback.
Right.
And we've already seen the 49ers go down that road.
Yeah.
So if this keeps going, we are going to see an offseason where you see a lot of familiar names move on.
Mm-hmm.
In an effort to get younger and cheaper and allow for whatever contract you're going to give Brock Purdy this offseason.
Mm-hmm. It's the solution that makes the most sense, because I host post game overtime on 95.7 The Game out in San Francisco, and the Kyle Shanahan's got to go stuff obviously is pretty prevalent. And that's just not a solution that is reality oriented and reality based. I think a solution
I would
like
request I would request if anyone says to me or shoots me a comment or something on X or whatever, if your take is fire Kyle Shanahan, just give me an alternative. Give me a name of a coach that you think is an upgrade.
They'll tell
otherwise
you
I don't really want to hear it.
No, they'll tell you literally anyone.
Sure.
It doesn't there's not, but the fact of the matter is I just won't. If you feel that way, like, go for it. That is your prerogative, that no doubt. But when you're talking like actual solutions or actual things we might see, Chris, I think what you're saying is more along the lines of the significant changes we're going to see in this offseason. There's just not, whatever their roster is right now just clearly isn't tenable. And it's what you talked about this before the year. Nick Wagner from ESPN, our favorite cast member, talked about this before the year. They're a super top heavy roster. They did not have a ton of really high quality depth. And so when George Kittle gets hurt and you have Eric Saubert is your option at tight end, like, it's going to be a problem.
And Jalen Moore.
And right when Trent Williams is banged up and has to play hurt because Jalen Moore is your option behind him, okay. When undrafted rookie Drake Nugent on your practice squad is your option to replace Jake Brendel, all right. Like, that's kind of like that's the issue I think they're running into is they're a little bit banged up right now, but they just don't have the depth to kind of withstand or make changes or withstand the injuries that they've kind of hit them. And so I think we're going to see a move toward them trying to be a little less top heavy next year.
Yeah, and even their best players aren't playing great, right? They're either at that point in their career where they're not in their physical primes or they're hurt, right? Like, Christian McCaffrey does not look like the guy he was last year. I think that's fair to say. George Kittle obviously wasn't available. Nick Bosa came out of the game and has been banged up the last couple weeks. I think Fred Warner is really the only guy where you say, all right, that's a guy who's been here for a while, who's still playing at a pretty damn high level. Aside from that, it's, the stalwarts, the guys who have been carrying this team for the last few years just aren't playing like A guys right now. Like, Deebo Samuel is just not playing at that level right now.
Nope.
Brandon Ayuk's unavailable, right? Like, so it's a combination of, like, the issues that you have with depth rise to the surface, sorry for the pun, when your A guys aren't there or aren't playing at the level that we're used to seeing them play at. So it's, there are a lot of it's we always try to do this thing where when a football team's struggling, like, what's the thing? What's the thing that's wrong with them? The thing that's wrong is a lot of things are wrong. Right? It's the injuries. It's not playing well. It's the receivers being unable to separate. It's Brock Purdy, missing Deebo Samuel wide open. Not wide open, but missing Deebo Samuel open on the crossing route.
That's it. You got to hit that throw, dog.
You have to hit that throw. you can also question the play call, because if you run the ball there and you force the Seahawks to use their timeout, then at least they don't have that timeout that they used at the end of the game, and they're a lot more frantic than they were. That was a pretty comfortable game-winning drive for the Seahawks because of their timeout situation.
I get it. I understand. I love the fact that they went for the kill shot. I am 100%. I am anything that gets Kyle Shanahan outside of being a strategic coach from 1981. I am here for. Like they ran the play action. Deebo is open. Your franchise quarterback has to hit that throw. Bottom line, like that's
I agree. Missing that play was a huge reason they lost.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I don't mind the play call. Like
I go back and forth. Like I thought about it a lot in the last few hours. They were 3 of 6 targeting Deebo to that point. He had 20 yards. And I get it, like he's your dude, and that's typically a throw that Brock makes, but also like offense is struggling. I wouldn't have been mad at running the ball there and forcing the Seahawks to use another timeout.
Offense is struggling. He knows Nick Bosa is not going to be back on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Like, I think there's, obviously it doesn't seem like a good play call because it didn't work. But yeah, to your point, it was a bad throw, and that's a throw that he made. That we've seen Brock make a lot.
A lot.
But that was, regardless of how we want to divvy out blame, it was a huge play in the game that went the wrong way for them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. And like you said, maybe if they run it there, the Seahawks don't have that timeout. Yeah, no doubt. But ultimately, anything that gets Kyle Shanahan away from being hyper conservative is something I'm kind of here for.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that sequence, one of the convenient things about this year's 49ers is you can kind of tell there will be some point in the game where you go, oh, they're going to lose today. And you brought this up in the open. It was right after Geno Smith threw the interception to start the second half. And the 49ers get to a 1st and 10 at Seattle. What? 1st and 10 at Seattle 16. Brock Purdy scrambles for 8 yards. That would have given him a 2nd and 2 at the Seattle 8 holding on Aaron Banks. So now they're at 1st and 20 at Seattle's 26. McCaffrey goes for 14 yards. Okay, they're at the 12. It's going to be 2nd and 6. They're back. Nope. Illegal formation. 1st and 25 at Seattle's 31. And they end up kicking a field goal. So instead of 14-6, it's now 10-6. Where one touchdown swings the game. And when they kicked that field goal, it was like, oh no. I have watched this movie a lot of times, and I know exactly how this goes.
Their first snap on that possession was from the Seahawks 27. Like, that is, for a team that's struggling in the red zone, to get a turnover and basically start 7 yards from the red zone is a huge, huge win and a huge opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't take advantage.
Do you have any thoughts on number 19 ranked Louisville?
No, Alex in the chat has a lot to say about Louisville. I don't have much to say about Louisville. But
did you see how they smoked their lead against Stanford?
I would love to see Louisville play Ohio State, I guess would be my retort. I don't know.
No, Louisville lost to Stanford yesterday. Stanford got the ball with like 8 seconds left or something, like 4 seconds maybe, and ran a play and got pushed out of bounds. But then there was a 15-yard penalty on Louisville, and then there was an offsides on the 57-yard field goal, so it became a 52-yard field goal, and then Stanford hit it with 1 second left or with no time left. It was crazy.
Stanford Louisville feels like a bowl game that should be played at a baseball stadium.
Yeah, that has big Foster Farms Bowl energy.
Yeah, not a conference. Not a conference game, but such is the state of college football these days. But no, like, I don't know. Are there any positives for you? I thought the defense was okay until Nick Bosa.
Juwan Jennings fucked.
Yeah, Juwan awesome. Jennings was that play. 2 consecutive 3rd and 11s he converts, including one of them where he drags 4 defenders over the line of scrimmage after being like 4 yards short.
The crazy thing is he did that to Seattle on Thanksgiving last year.
Yeah.
Like almost the exact same play. Like, man, he's a baller, dude.
The Niners had like 5 guys having the season Juwan Jennings is having last year. Like 5 guys were having like career years last year. And this year, Juwan Jennings is the only one.
Juwan Jennings, after 10 games, has career highs in catches, yards, and he's 1 shy of his career high in touchdowns.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, going forward, like, is your receiving core Brandon Ayuk coming off the devastating knee injury, Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and a 2nd-round pick next year? Or another 1st-round pick?
We're assuming Ayuk is back for the start of the year.
I mean, he'll play next year. I don't know when, but I'm assuming he's going to factor into their plans.
Yeah, I think you go Ayuk, Jennings, Pearsall, and maybe that's where they go with their 1st-round pick.
Maybe you got a free agent guy.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done a deep dive on wide receiver free agents just yet, but I can haphazardly do so thanks to our friends at Over the Cap. Yeah, maybe they go, and this is where this is the extra crappy thing about this year for the Niners is they are going to, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I really don't. Because I don't know that they'll get to the requisite number of wins to be competitive in that race. And B, they're going to have no tiebreakers over anyone.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to, they're going to, at best, they can be 3-3 in the division. At best.
Yeah, they might have lost the division today.
Yeah, they're going to have to just outright be better than everyone else in the division. And I don't think that's coming. So but they're going to miss the playoffs, but also be like right on the outskirts. So they're going to pick like 17th or 18th, which is just a terrible spot to have to draft.
Not always. You can find some dudes there.
Yeah, but I think they might go receiver. Maybe they find an offensive tackle they like in that range.
Yeah. Defensive tackle. They love a mid 1st round defensive tackle.
Oh, they might trade up for one.
Yeah. Pass up an all-pro offensive tackle for a defensive tackle they like. Like 2020. No, I mean we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about the offseason. It just seems like I think the broader point here is a loss like this in conjunction with how the rest of the season has gone makes you think that this is where they're headed.
This is a Jed York sends out a tweet type of loss.
Maybe they come back and kick the shit out of the Packers next week. And we're like, what is this team after that?
Here's the deal though. Here's the deal on that. And I said this on the radio today. I'm sure by Sunday at kickoff, I'll have talked myself into like, oh, okay, well, maybe. But the fact of the matter is like you said, maybe they do go kick the shit out of the Packers. But like, that'll be a surprise to me. If they do that, it'll be like, where did that come from? It won't be like, oh, they're back.
Right.
That would be out of character if they did that.
They're no longer the sleeping giant.
No.
They're just
sleeping. Come on. I didn't mean to step on your punchline.
It's
Sorry, man.
All good. They're not the sleeping giant right now. They're just sleeping. And I mean, the other thing that's really bad for them about this loss, like just looking at the schedule, you had Seattle at home, who you're decidedly better than.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go to Green Bay, and you have to go to Buffalo, who just beat the Chiefs. And I think Buffalo will be coming off.
Bye week.
Buffalo will be coming off their bye week.
Perfect. Of course. No, this is great. we might get the graphic in that game of largest margin of defeat in the Kyle Shanahan era. That might be a boat racing. Here, I want to play a game real quick before we get out of here. Are the 49ers going to be favored against the Packers?
No, because I don't think Nick Bosa is going to play. And I think that's going to have a big impact on the line.
Are they going to be favored against the Bills?
No.
Are they going to be favored against the Bears?
Yes.
At home. They'll be favored against the Bears for sure. Will they be favored against the Rams on Thursday Night Football at home? I think they'll be favored, but it'll be one of those like 1.5 point spreads.
Yeah, they'll be favored, but it'll be within like whatever. I don't think it's 3 points anymore. It used to be home field advantage was worth 3 points. I think it'll be like 1 or 2 points.
I asked my buddy who is a professional sports gambler, and he said the home spread thing varies by stadium and team.
Okay. Well, so that being said, it doesn't feel like the 49ers have much of an advantage when they play at home. And that's not a knock on fans, or like I think Levi's is a good atmosphere. But the Niners aren't like protecting home field. It's not like they're playing a whole lot better when they're home. Nobody's like, oh man, tough to go in and win there. In the playoffs, sure, but Dolphins. I say they'll be favored against the Dolphins.
I don't think they will be. Lions will be favored by a bunch. Then at Arizona, if Arizona's playing for anything, they're not going to be favored in that one. Yikes.
We'll see. I mean, the Niners are a very public team, and the odds makers do love to give them some love when it comes to point spreads. We'll see if that continues. But I mean, if Nick Bosa said in response to Nick Wagner's question in the presser today that he's kind of anticipating an absence. So we'll see. I think Nick Bosa is the most consequential defensive player they have when it comes to like Fred Warner's really good, obviously, but they are a completely different defense when Nick Bosa is just not on the field.
Yeah.
Turgos Mattis was okay today.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. Yeah. Leonard Floyd had a couple of moments.
Yeah.
But they just don't like the 2019 pass rush was just so deep and relentless for 4 quarters that like if Nick Bosa went out, you would notice it, but it wouldn't be like a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And now it's like Nick Bosa goes out and I was like, oh dear.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't. You're highest paid non-quarterback in the league. You got to have him available. So we'll see. I don't think there's any chance they win in Green Bay without Nick Bosa, honestly. I just don't see it. Unless some truly weird stuff happens. Or maybe it's a weather game and neither team can score, and then it becomes kind of a toss-up. But if weather isn't a thing and you're just going heads up against the Packers, I don't know how you feel good if you're the Niners without Nick Bosa.
No. Yeah.
Unless Kittle's back and Deebo Samuel drinks Michael Jordan's secret stuff and is playing like it's 2021 again.
I'll be shocked if they play great in Green Bay. Shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. To your point earlier, it might be a just mental bandwidth thing. Might be like, man, we've done so much. We've played so much extra football these last few years. We're not the same team this year. These other teams are clearly better than us right now. It's really hard to have that same emotional edge that they used to have.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really what it comes down to.
Or maybe we'll bury them for the next week and they'll come out and have their best game of the season against the Packers. We'll see.
Sure, man. I'm going to continue burying them until otherwise. No.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt that they can go beat a good team.
No.
Because they're losing to not great teams.
If they go beat Buffalo and beat Green Bay, then sure, let's change the conversation. But I got to see it first.
Right.
Anyways. Got anything else?
Just real quick.
So Bernardo Green was good today?
Yeah, Bernardo Green was good. Niners at 5-5 are currently 10th in the NFC. I guess a game and a half behind Washington, who are in the 7th seed at 7-4. So yeah, I mean, next week it's 5-5 against 7-3 Green Bay, and Green Bay is currently the 6th seed in the NFC.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, it's about as, all these games are big. All these games are really, really big, particularly the NFC games. But
I think you've got to get to 11-6 because they're not going to have tiebreakers.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like they're now, because in the NFC it's head to head, and they're not going to have that over the Vikings, the Rams. They'll need it over the Packers, which may be a big deal, but like it goes to conference record. They're not going to have conference record at all over anyone. I don't think. They're 3-4 in the conference now.
What's their best win? Is it Tampa? Was it last week? They've beaten the Jets, who stink, the Patriots, who stink, the Seahawks, who I still think stink, the Cowboys stink, who definitely stink, and Tampa, who's like, okay. Like, they haven't beaten a good team.
Every one of those teams is either 500 or has a losing record.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Jets and Patriots are combined. That's not right. The Jets and Patriots are combined 6-16. Ugh.
Yep, that is correct.
Yikes.
That is correct.
Dallas is 3-6. My God. Tampa's 4-6. Seattle's 5. Oh, man. Not great, Bob.
Yeah, so their best win is either at Tampa or at Seattle.
Yeah.
Because we're not including the Jets at home on Monday night. Or
the Cowboys. No. Cowboys neither.
The Cowboys game, first 3.5 quarters, you felt pretty, kind of encouraged by.
And then it turns out the Cowboys are just ass.
Yeah, and then they almost lost, and the Cowboys are ass. So
a real double whammy there.
We'll see. Tough times. Underachieving team right now.
Yep.
We'll have more conversations as we digest this one going into the week. And subscribe to our YouTube channel.
We're fired up to be here. We'll get cracking on draft coverage and
start keying in on Saturdays.
Oh, I'm already locked into all 22s on Penn State tight end Ty Warren.
Nice.
Yeah. Catch a wave.
Nice. Yeah. I'm curious what his
Armando gets
what his Z-score ends up being.
This guy gets it.
Yeah, Armando in the chat until they bring back the striped socks. Couldn't agree more. Particularly when they wear the throwbacks. There's no worse look happening in football, and a lot of teams are doing this. They're like home jerseys, which are a color, white pants, and then white socks. Like the Eagles do it constantly. The Vikings have done it. The Niners do it with their throwbacks. It's a fucking horrendous look, and it needs to be stopped.
Yep.
You look like a bunch of football players in white yoga pants. You weirdos.
All right, that's it for us. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Tell your friends. We appreciate y'all.
All right, see ya.
See ya.